Welcome to Breaking the Cycle of Poverty, featuring Jay Height, Executive Director of Shepherd Community Center in Indianapolis. My name is Tim Swearens, and I'm your host for these conversations that explore why poverty remains such a persistent problem in the United States. On this episode, Jay reflects on 30 years of ministry at Shepherd and the advice he would give to his younger self. Jay, if we could hop into the DeLorean and go back to the future, what are a couple of key lessons that you've learned along the way that you would share with your younger self?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Try. But if it fails, kill it and move on. I think sometimes in the ministry world, we just keep things going. I think one of the other ones is relationships are everything. And so we have to build relationships. And it's really ministry in all directions. It's not to my neighbors, it's with my neighbors, it's with my donors, it's with the elected officials. We have this platform, much like Nehemiah, that goes in all directions.
Yeah. So this conversation is kind of based on the hope that, we can learn from our mistakes. Are there mistakes you've made in the past that really stand out to you in your memory, and what did you learn from them?
I think ministry and life balance. I wish I'd have done some things differently. I am thankful. I have a wife who loves me. We just celebrated 37 years of marriage. We have 3 kids. They're married, grandkids. They're all in full-time ministry. They don't resent ministry, so I'm thankful. But I do look back and say, you know what? Being at that meeting probably wasn't as important as I would have thought it was. And so I think there's that. And then the one, I think I struggled. Many of us in leadership have had this moment where you think you have to have the answers. You're afraid that people won't value you. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned is I need to surround myself with people who have the answers, because they can be a lot smarter than I am, and I don't have to always have the answer.
So it's building those relationships with very talented, skilled people and surrounding them, being comfortable enough to have them around you.
Right, and listening.
Sadly, we can't go back and share our hard-earned experiences with our younger selves, but we can share what we've learned with new generations. What advice and encouragement do you have for young ministry leaders?
Be in a mentoring relationship, both being mentored and mentoring others. Wherever you're at in the journey, you always need to be being poured into and then pouring into others.
How do they go about finding those mentors?
I think that's where you start praying and asking God to make that clear. This year I turned 60, and I look at God has blessed us for the 30 years here to see where Shepherd is. But really this next decade of ministry for me is who am I building into, mm-hmm. and being purposeful at. So I challenge leaders to be purposeful, to find folks to invest in. And investing in is not being cheerleaders. It's sometimes those tough conversations, right, because we have to love people like Christ loved us. And then if someone says, man, I want to be mentored, I would pray that God will open the right door. And sometimes, I think we all have to be students of the Word, spend more time in the Word, but also reading good books that very smart people have written that we can learn from. All truth comes from God, so we need to go out and pursue that.
Over 30 years, you've probably had more than one mentor. Who's helped you along the way?
Yeah, I'm thankful that many of my board members have taken me under their wing and helped me. I have a good friend, Dave Rodriguez, former senior pastor at Grace, has been someone who has spoken into my life. But I go all the way back to my Little League coaches and my drama coach in high school, and those folks that God puts us in the way to intersect where we journey. And sometimes we journey a long time, and sometimes we journey a short time. And, people like Mike Evans, Mike and I have been friends for most of my time here. And I really believe in that iron sharpens iron. And there are countless folks here, Tim Street, who and Andrew Green, and those folks that I have the privilege to call colleagues, and I could, I'm going to forget somebody, and someone's going to say, "Hey, what?" God just keeps giving them, and
Yes.
I want to make sure that I'm being faithful to pour into many others.
What I hear you saying is, even though you've been in the ministry for 30 years, you still have a need for people to pour into your life, that to have somebody you can go to for some wise counsel.
Yeah, it is to help process through. There's a pastor here in the neighborhood, Mike Bowling, at Englewood Christian Church, who has been here, I think, 35 years, and I like to pick his brain, and I always look forward to our times together, because there's something about that I can sit at the feet and learn from anyone. And sometimes it's young leaders, young,
Yes.
passionate folks who God has given a special skill. And maybe one other advice is listen more and talk less.
So we both have more days behind us than ahead of us in this life. Any regrets about pouring out your life for so long in the ministry?
No, I am thankful that I could be in one place as long as our family has been here 30 years, because I have deep relationships in the neighborhood. These are our friends, our neighbors, and so I love that. I've gotten more than I've given. There's so many times when God blesses me through a neighbor that they say something, or I hear something, or a text. And many of my friends that I've engaged with across the United States, and you see, there are no regrets to answering the call that God made and it was a family call. It wasn't just my call, but for Jane and I and our kids, and then to see them living that out in different venues is affirming.
And I know it's not always been easy, because you've had to deal with some very, very difficult situations over the years.
Yeah, there's been I tell folks never stop crying, because you've got to keep that heart that God replaces. He replaces our heart of stone with a heart of flesh. We need to have that. We need to weep as God weeps with us. But He doesn't promise no problems. He promises to go through with us through those problems.
Yes. Sum it up for our listeners. What's a main point or two you've learned in ministry that other leaders can apply in their calling?
You have to stay connected to your power source, which is God. That's your prayer. That's your Bible reading. Have people speaking into your life, people who encourage you, who challenge you, who push you, who make you feel uncomfortable. Those are all good things. It makes us better. And then be committed to raising up leaders around you. John Maxwell talks a lot about who are you bringing along? Jesus, in 3 years, focused on initially, 12, and then there was the larger number, 70, and others. But it was 12, and we hear a lot about 3.
Yes.
And He changed the world doing that, and so we can too.
We've talked a lot about the past in this episode, but the future of Shepherd looks very exciting, very bright. Share with our listeners what lies ahead for Shepherd.
Well, it is. We're laying the groundwork now for 40 more years.
Yes.
As we celebrate 40, but it's where are we going, and with some new facilities and a new gathering place for the community to come that we hope to be breaking ground on this fall. Many of our new homes that we'll be building over the course of the next few years, the townhomes for families in transition, and just the continued growth of our programs for students, growth of our academy, before and after school programs, the work that's happening inside of Arsenal Tech High School with our teams there, and what a great partnership we have. It is exciting, and our 2030 vision is to be serving, from a few years ago, 4 times the number of kids. So we're headed in that direction. We want to get to 16 to 1,700 kids that we're engaging with on a regular basis. That's why that relationship scale that we've talked about previous episodes is important, so that we can have 750 deep family relationships, because there we'll have the density to impact the neighborhood.
Thank you, Jay. For 40 years, Shepherd Community has made a lasting difference in the lives of thousands and thousands of neighbors. The Shepherd team couldn't do that work without the support of donors, partners, and volunteers. To learn more about how you can help, please visit shepherdcommunity.org. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.